That evening, the air inside the VIP room of Hoshihana, the most luxurious Japanese restaurant in the heart of Manhattan, was thick with power and money. Free executives from Tokyo were seated at the same table as Lucas Bradford, the American billionaire and CEO of Bradford Global Holdings, a man who treated every dinner party like a stage to flaunt his status. Crystal glasses clinked softly, smooth jazz floated through the dark wood interior, while every gaze in the room was fixed on a contract worth hundreds of millions of dollars waiting to be signed. In the midst of that solemn atmosphere, Ava Johnson, the only black waitress in the room, approached with a silver tray in her hands. Her pristine white uniform glowed gently under the amber lights. Her eyes were calm, polite, as always. But Lucas smirked, a smirk that reeked of arrogance. He set his wine glass down, looked her up and down, and said in a tone that was half joking, half commanding, "I'll give you $100,000 if you serve us in Japanese." No one had time to react. He pulled out a thick stack of cash and tossed it onto the silver tray. Bills fluttered down, a few landing softly on the wooden floor. The entire table froze. One of the Japanese executives frowned. Another lowered his eyes in silence. Lucas laughed, turning to them. "Let's see if she even knows how to say thank you in Japanese." His laughter echoed in the otherwise silent room. The air felt heavy, as if someone had just poured through an invisible boundary. A black waitress had just been humiliated in front of some of the most powerful men in New York. Ava stood still. She looked down at the money, then raised her gaze and met Lucas's eyes. There was no anger, no fear, just a thin, subtle smile, soft as a breeze, yet sharp enough to silence the table. She said, her voice calm and unnervingly steady, "I accept." In that instant, no one understood what had just begun. The man who thought he held all the power had unknowingly started a game, one where the weakest person in the room was the only one brave enough to play. Her name was Ava Johnson, 29 years old. No one in that lavish room knew that the woman holding the silver tray had once been a doctor of cultural anthropology, specializing in Japanese studies at UCLA, a scholar who had lectured on traditional rituals and linguistics, who had lived 2 years in Kyoto, and who had walked through ancient tea gardens where people bowed to each other with the purest form of respect. Back then, Ava had been invited to teach, to publish research papers, and was seen as one of the most promising young academics in her field. She once believed her life would always belong to the university until her mother, a devoted elementary school teacher, was diagnosed with end-stage kidney failure. From that moment, everything collapsed. Insurance was not enough. Her academic reputation could not pay for the transplant. Ava sold the small apartment she shared with her mother, quit teaching, and took on any job that would bring money, even the night shift as a waitress. Hoshihana offered higher pay and better medical insurance, so she put on the white uniform, learned to bow, smile, and say "arigato gozaimasu" to people who never cared who she really was. 3 years passed. She barely slept, days spent caring for her mother in the hospital, nights spent working herself to exhaustion. But through the fatigue and the condescending looks, Ava held on to one thing no one could ever take away: the dignity of intellect and the belief that every human being has value, no matter their position. Across the table that night sat Lucas Bradford, 54 years old, a man who could make a company collapse with a single phone call. He was rich, confident, and used to turning people into entertainment to showcase his dominance. And in his eyes, Ava was nothing more than a black waitress who knows how to say thank you. What Lucas did not know was that, the moment he threw that stack of cash, he had awakened a part of Ava's past she thought she had buried, a part of her that had studied Japanese culture not just through words, but through the heart. The air in the VIP room grew even heavier after Ava's quiet "I accept." Lucas Bradford narrowed his eyes, smirking as if he had just heard the most ridiculous thing in the world. He took a slow sip of sake and said, his voice drawn out, "You'll serve my Japanese guests fully in Japanese. If you fail, you'll kneel and apologize for wasting our time." The Japanese executives exchanged uneasy glances. None of them looked pleased. Yet before Lucas's overbearing tone, no one dared to speak up. Ava stood still. The silver tray in her hands did not tremble. She replied, her voice low but firm, "And if I succeed, you'll double the bet, $200,000. Laughter erupted around the table, sharp, incredulous, laced with mockery. One of the Japanese men, Mr. Saito, an executive from their partner corporation, spoke softly. "Perhaps we shouldn't." But Lucas waved his hand dismissively. "No, let's see the show." She asked for it. Ava simply bowed slightly and stepped back. None of them realized that behind her composure was a treasury of knowledge she had spent nearly a decade mastering. Years ago, Ava had written her doctoral thesis on Chano Yu, the Japanese tea ceremony, and the philosophy of harmony in modern Japanese culture. She spoke Japanese fluently. She had lived in small Kyoto neighborhoods where people believed that respect began with the way you poured tea. She deeply understood omotenashi, the spirit of wholehearted hospitality, not out of obligation, but out of sincerity. Now, in a cruel twist of fate, she, the woman who once lectured about omotenashi, stood in the role of a waitress, facing a man who found amusement in humiliating others. A coworker passed by, briefly touching her shoulder, silently asking, "Are you okay?" Ava smiled. In her deep brown eyes flickered something rare, not anger, but the calm certainty of someone who knew she was going to win. No one in that room of power had any idea that within just a few minutes, the balance would shift. The man who thought he could buy submission would soon bow before knowledge. Lucas leaned back in his chair, his cold blue eyes gleaming with provocation. He called out loudly, "Bring the Japanese special menu. I want to see how far she can go." The restaurant manager stumbled into the room, hands trembling as he held a keizeki menu, a ceremonial, meticulously crafted menu reserved for the most refined dining experiences. On the table, the dishes were arranged perfectly: sashimi, tempura, miso shiru, wagyu sukiyaki, each one a symbol of Japan's cultural artistry. Lucas smirked and pointed at the menu. "Describe 5 dishes in Japanese. Explain the ingredients, the origin, the meaning. If you stumble, you kneel." A public challenge, a humiliation disguised as entertainment. The entire room held its breath. Ava placed the tray down, bowed slightly, her eyes closed for a brief second. When she opened them, her voice filled the air, low, graceful, and spoken in flawless Kyoto Japanese. "Minasama, honjitsu no dokubetsu kaiseki ryo goshoukai itashimasu." Honored guests, allow me to present tonight's special keizeki menu. The room seemed to stop moving. The tone of her voice stunned the 3 Japanese executives. It was not textbook Japanese, it was the language of ceremony, of reverence. Ava continued, every word fluid, rhythmic, and poised. She explained that keizeki ryori was not merely a meal, but a philosophy of mindfulness, a way to find harmony in every bite, in every breath. She spoke of tempura, tracing it back to 16th century Portuguese cuisine, describing it as a symbol of cultural fusion, proof that beauty does not come from purity, but from the acceptance of difference. She mentioned miso shiru, a humble soup that embodied the principle of ichiju sensei, one soup, 3 dishes, balance between humanity and nature. And when she spoke of wagyu sukiyaki, her voice softened, like a whisper. It represents wa, the harmony between people and the world around them. The table fell silent. One of the Japanese executives, Mr. Takeda, murmured in Japanese, "Kano dewarikai shitiru seishino." She doesn't just speak it, she understands its spirit. Lucas struggled to keep a smile, the corner of his mouth twitching. "That's rehearsed," he said stiffly. "You must have memorized a script." Ava looked up, met his gaze, and replied, in Japanese so fluent it sent chills through the room. "Gokibo nara, kyu dohogen et suzukimashou ka?" Would you like me to continue in the Kyoto dialect? A moment of silence. Then whispers spread around the table. Kyoto dialect. The Japanese guests could hardly believe it. The Kyoto dialect, classical, elegant, was spoken only by those who had lived long enough in the ancient capital to master its nuance. Lucas fell silent. Ava straightened, her gaze unwavering. Her voice shifted to English, clear, steady, cutting through the air like a blade. "My name is Dr. Ava Johnson, PhD in Cultural Anthropology, specializing in Japanese studies, UCLA. I was a visiting researcher at Kyoto University and author of The Spirit of Omotenashi, published by Oxford University Press." The entire room went still. A few of the Japanese executives rose and bowed deeply to her, a gesture reserved only for those they truly respected. Lucas sat frozen, his hand tightening around his wine glass, his face flushed with shame. In that moment, the balance of power completely reversed. There were no longer the served and the server. Only intellect facing arrogance, and intellect had won. The room remained suffocatingly silent. Only the ticking of the wall clock could be heard, counting down the fall of a man's pride. Mr. Saito, the calm middle-aged Japanese executive, was the first to stand. He looked at Ava for a long time, then turned toward Lucas and said slowly, "We will not continue business with a man who humiliates a scholar." The two other executives rose as well, bowing in unison before Ava. In that instant, respect changed direction from wealth to wisdom. One of the staff discreetly pulled out a phone and began recording the entire scene. Lucas stammered, his face burning red, his lips trembling. He looked around, the eyes fixed on him no longer carried admiration, but judgment. Finally, he set his glass down and said hoarsely, I apologize for my arrogance." Ava bowed her head slightly, saying nothing. She did not need to. The room sank into a silence called justice, the kind that did not come from a courtroom, but from truth laid bare. Days later, the video spread across social media under the title, "Racist CEO Destroyed by Black Anthropologist Waitress." Millions of views in 24 hours. Public outrage followed. Bradford Global stock plummeted. Business partners withdrew. The board forced Lucas to resign and launched a full corporate ethics investigation. As for Ava, she refused all interview requests, quietly continuing to work at the restaurant for several more weeks. When the manager handed her an envelope containing $200,000, the money Lucas had been ordered to pay, Ava simply smiled and said, "Please donate it to the restaurant's scholarship fund for immigrant students." No one could say a word. Amid the media storm, Ava chose to walk in silence, like a scholar bowing not to victory, but to knowledge. That evening, as she left the restaurant, the autumn wind swept through the towering buildings of Manhattan, carrying the soft glow of city lights. In the glass door's reflection, Ava's silhouette appeared not as a waitress, but as a symbol of dignity and pride. 6 months later, the Manhattan sky shimmered with gentle late autumn sunlight, reflected in the glass windows on the 48th floor of Saito Takeda International. Inside a bright, sun-lit office, Ava Johnson sat before a screen, adjusting the slides of her presentation. Across the title read, "How Respect Builds Bridges Between Cultures." She was no longer a waitress. On her new business card, beneath the name Dr. Ava Johnson, was the title, Director of Cultural Communication, a position personally offered by Mr. Saito after that unforgettable night. On her desk stood a small photo frame beside her laptop, a picture of her and her mother, both smiling peacefully. The kidney transplant had succeeded. Her mother could now walk every morning and tend to her old flower garden again. When the talk show cameras switched on, Ava sat under the studio lights, calm and composed. The host asked, "If you could say something to the man who insulted you that night, what would it be?" Ava smiled softly. "He threw money at me to test my worth. But knowledge cannot be bought, and respect cannot be demanded by force. You earn it through understanding." For a moment, the studio fell silent. Simple words, yet carrying the weight of an entire life. That night, the clip spread across every social media platform. The hashtag respect has no color went viral worldwide. Messages poured in, from Tokyo to Lagos, from New York to Johannesburg. People shared their own stories of being underestimated, disrespected, and how they found the strength to rise. The image of Ava, the black waitress once challenged with $100,000, had become a global symbol of intellect and human dignity rising above prejudice. As she concluded her presentation that day, she spoke slowly. "Respect is not a language, it's a bridge. And when we build it, we stand together." Then she smiled, looking straight into the camera. If this story makes you believe that knowledge and self-respect can change the world, subscribe to our channel so together we can keep sharing stories of resilience, justice, and the power of the human spirit.